Huge win for Liverpool today. Massive 3 points. Could it have been better? Absolutely. There were definitely still some holes in the game. But again, for the second game running, at least it felt like a Klopp Liverpool team and performance. And that in itself gives me so much confidence for the rest of the season. This was always going to be a difficult game. Newcastle have only lost once all season. And funnily enough, that was actually against Liverpool at Anfield when Carvalho scored that 95th, 96th minute winner. Newcastle hadn't lost at home all season. And Liverpool hadn't kept a clean sheet in the league away from home since last April. I mean, horrific stat, I have to say. Newcastle started on the front foot. They really tried to squeeze Liverpool, and they had a great chance after just in the first 5 minutes. Almiron forced a really good save from Alisson. And at that point, I started getting a bit concerned if our defensive frailties were just going to come to the fore again and we were going to pay the price for it. Newcastle were taking the game to Liverpool. They were pressing high. They were really congesting the centre of the park. And they kept filtering Liverpool's play out wide, almost using the sideline as an extra man, squeezing the ball. And we were finding it hard to build out from the back and to progress through midfield. Speaking of the midfield, we had the same midfield, Fabinho, Henderson and Bajcetic as we did in the game against Everton, and actually the same starting 11 as a whole, which, yeah, I think that was the right decision after a good performance against Everton. So Liverpool were getting squeezed a bit early on, but as the game wore on, they started finding moments where they were able to play through the midfield and into space. And because Newcastle were committing quite a few men forward, they obviously felt like they could just take us on head on, which I guess most teams in the league would probably think that right now. But it meant that Liverpool were able to get some counter-attacking opportunities. And we did something today that we haven't really been doing, especially away from home, much at all this season, which is to be clinical. First two shots, 2 goals. The first goal came from a great pass from Trent, which was straight through the 2 Newcastle centre halves. Nunes took the ball down, blasted it, hit it flush, one-on-one with Pope. It was on the volley, blasted into the net. It was a really nice finish. And honestly, I was delighted for Nunes to get that goal. He badly needed it. It was actually his first goal since November, before the World Cup. I know he's been injured as well, but he's just been missing so many chances. So I really hope this will get his confidence back up. The second goal was excellent as well. Salah ended up playing a really nice first-time pass into Gakpo, again, right in between the 2 centre-halves. He turns on the ball, fires it into the corner, and after 20 minutes or so, Liverpool are 2 up with just 2 shots on target. But even at 2-0, it didn't feel like the game was safe. And it felt like if Newcastle got a goal, St. James's Park would have just erupted. And the result was never secure at that point. Until the red card. Fantastic ball out from Alisson. Finds Salah in space. And Pope, who had been playing kind of a sweeper-keeper role quite a few times in the game already, darts out from his area and ends up handballing it, gets sent off. It was the correct decision. But at that point, you're thinking, okay, we're 2-0 up, Newcastle down to 10 men, with the guts of probably 70 minutes still to play. You're thinking, okay, this has to be 3 points today. And it was, but I just felt like we made the game harder than it needed to be. The tone of the game changed when Newcastle got a player sent off. Liverpool had been trying to play really quick, playing sharp. They seemed very focused. But then when Newcastle went down to 10 men, they dropped the whole pace of the game. The passing was slower. They started just passing the ball side to side across the back line, almost trying to wind down the clock. And the thing is, Newcastle had been playing 4-3-3, but they switched then to a 4-3-2, and their press, which had been very high at times, dropped all the way to the halfway line. So now Liverpool's defenders had so much time on the ball. And I've no problem with us trying to run down the clock a bit and trying to slow down the pace of the game, make Newcastle have to chase it. But I just felt like we could have done more to go out and try to get that third goal, which would have killed the game. Because at 2-0, you could tell that Newcastle still believed they could get back into the game, even with 10 men. And as the game wore on, they actually looked the more likely to get the next goal. They hit the crossbar twice, and there was an incident later on in the second half where they actually had a 3-on-2 in Newcastle's favour. running at the Liverpool goal. And honestly, at that point, I was I was furious seeing that. How can you be 2-0 up with an extra man on the pitch and have a 3-on-2 defensively? It can't happen. Fortunately, Alisson bailed us out again, but you could tell Klopp was going absolutely mad at his team at that point because we were just committing too many men forward. We were almost, that last 15 minutes, we were almost playing like we were 2-0 down. The two fullbacks were going forward. At this point, Henderson was off, Bajcetic was off, Elliott and Milner came on. And Elliott's pretty much like a fourth attacker. He just doesn't offer enough defensively. Milner was trying to play as a roaming 8 getting forward as well. And that pretty much meant that when Newcastle won the ball back, at times it was just Fabinho on the two centre halves. You can't do this. It's too risky. And that's why I think a big part of the reason why we've looked better in the last couple of games is, well, it's because Fabinho and Henderson are starting to actually play closer to their level, which, quick side tangents, it's looking like Klopp's decision to bench them for multiple games was a fantastic one because they've at least come back seemingly a bit refreshed. They seem to have a bit more energy, more focus. And Henderson in particular he's got it in his head that he's going to lead the press everywhere. He's organising it. He's covering a lot of space. He's proving to be a really important player these last few days, or these last few games. Fabinho, again, not quite at his level, but at least he's improved as well. But my point was going to be that with Henderson, Fabinho and Bajcetic, they're all closing space. They're covering for each other. They're filling in gaps when the fullbacks go forward. And it's making us seem a lot more solid in the centre of the park. But when Elliott's there, I like Elliott as a player, but just defensively, he just doesn't offer enough, I think, to play in that 3. Unless, and this is what happened after Newcastle had that counter-attack, Milner stopped going forward as much and he almost started dropping in as a double pivot with Fabinho to at least form the two centre-halves behind them to offer a bit more cover. So I really think that balance in midfield is so important and it's been off for a lot of this season. It's something we really need to get right. So we always left the door open for Newcastle to get back into it, which was a bit disappointing. And the XG, the expected goals, tells that story. Newcastle actually had an XG of 1.75, which it's too high. We just can't concede that high in XG. The majority of it was from set plays, which again, we look so vulnerable for. And look, granted, they've got Dan Burn, who's about 6'7" in there. But Newcastle had multiple free headers in the box. And I think the two occasions they hit the bar originated from a set play. So it's something we just really, really need to tighten up on. Liverpool had an XG of 2.17, which is very good away from home. Again, though, should have killed the game off. And that probably is the main disappointing thing. Klopp made 4 substitutions at around the hour mark. He's probably thinking of the Real Madrid game on Tuesday. And we had Jota, Firmino, Elliott and Milner all come on at the same time. Jota in particular had some unbelievable chances. He missed a header from about 3 or 4 yards out, free header, and he missed a one-on-one. So, I mean, look, he's going to be rusty. He's been injured for months, but we're going to need him to start firing again to help move us up the table. I just wish we had shown that clinical edge that we had at the beginning of the game in order to kill a game off. Overall, though, it is a huge result and a massive, massive 3 points. Just a week ago, before the Everton game, Liverpool were 12 points behind Newcastle. That victory, the Everton victory, made it 9 points. Today's win has made it 6 points, the gap. And Liverpool still have a game in hand on Newcastle, who are in 4th place. And it seems unbelievable after the 3-0 loss against Wolves a couple of weeks ago. But we're still in the race for 4th. We're still in the race for the Champions League. If we win our game in hand against Newcastle, we'll be just 3 points behind them. Brighton lost today as well. And it's kind of crazy that as bad as Liverpool have been this season, we're still in touching distance for that final Champions League spot. But the biggest thing for me is just the performances feel like Klopp Liverpool performances. It feels like the team we've seen over the last 5 years. And that gives me so much confidence that we can actually put a run together. The way we were playing in previous games against Brighton, against Wolves, it didn't look like we were capable of it. But things seem to be turning. And we're getting players back from injury. Jota back, Firmino back, Van Dijk back after injury. And he was fantastic today. The outlook is starting to seem so much brighter. But the key is to keep consistency. We have to maintain this if we want to make a push for this top 4 place. But also, if we want to do any kind of damage in the Champions League. We've got Real Madrid on Tuesday. I would love to get one over on them. They've had enough knocks against us over the years. But if we play like we can at Anfield in a European night where it's a fortress, we can beat them for sure. And then the next game is Crystal Palace next Saturday away from home in the league. But again, getting players back from injury, keeping this kind of performance level going, who knows? This might just be another miracle from Klopp, reviving this season when it seemed dead and buried. What did you think about today's game? Did you think Liverpool should have done more to get that 3rd goal today? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.